Who doesn't like to open a shop with a mannequin? Welcome to part 2, the art that lives in my bedroom. And this is the top of my dresser. Those glasses were actually belonged to Roberta Carlton, who was told you about in the previous part. My friend Claire had done the painting of her with the Tweety Bird slippers, and she was wearing those glasses in that painting. We'll move across here, the dresser. I'm actually going to talk a bit about this center silhouette piece, which belonged to my mother, and I'll tell you a little short story about that when we get there on the following slideshow, which I'll go over all these pieces a little bit more in detail. On the top, or the headboard, I have several fun items, and I will be featuring a few of these in the following slideshow. And those, of course, are paintings by Timothy Cummings, and I'll be talking about those as well. Now we're going to move over here to this side of the room, and that's my Mae West wall, and I'll be covering that big poster in the center as well as the photograph on the top there. And then we have this screen piece by Jim Winters of Edith Massey as Queen Carlotta, and the Queen of Horror in San Francisco, Peaches Christ. And down here is a little cover, or it was actually a photograph included in a book called Cafes of the World, and Mad Magda's was included in that, and it's a great photo. Actually, the big carnival canvas on the right-hand side was painted by my roommate, Timothy Cummings, and I have that in my collection as well. Following this, we'll have the promised episode 3. It only involves 2 homoerotic pieces. You'll see that in the next day or so. Then after that, I'm going to go back to doing some reading. I'm going to focus a little bit on my friend William Martin's book, Life in an Ivory Tower. Hope you enjoy. We begin with Pod People by Brian Bourassa. This is actually hanging right next to my dresser. Now we're going to move on to this silhouette. My mother rediscovered this on a visit to her hometown of Clyde, Ohio in the 70s. She found it in a box up in her old apartment building, and she was in tears. She asked if she could have it, and they gave it to her, and now it sits on my dresser. This is a series of 3 paintings that were done by Timothy Cummings on notepad. It was his first visit to Berlin, and you can definitely see that influence in these figures, or that inspiration. The next little sculpture belonged to my grandma Norma. I believe it's marble. Just a sweet little rendering of a maiden. It's a very meditative piece. Another sculpture I have up here is a miniature glass that was given to me by poet Marvin Heimstra of Pan. This miniature painting I got in Amsterdam. Was given to me by my host Jan Willemsen when I stayed with him. Little glass hand-painted bottle piece by Scooter LaForge from 1995. And a self-portrait of the late, great Lalo Segura was included in a series of self-portraits he did for his 44th birthday. There were 44 of them. Jim Winters' silkscreen of San Francisco horror queen Peaches Christ, and Edith Massey as Queen Carlotta. Mad Magda's was featured in a New Zealand book, Cafes of the World, and it's just a great photo of the cafe. Mae West, portrait that was hanging at the tribute to Mae West in 1981 at the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. If you looked into her eyes long enough, you could see her or visit her from the other side. and Mae Westbun by Danny Nicoletta, photographed in 1978 for the premiere of Sextet. I hope you enjoy this, and now to episode 3.